Hi, I'm DC Morby, founder of the V16 leadership platform and the Go movement, and I wanted to tell you a true story from my youth. When I was 17 years old, my family attended a church party at Oaklawn Park. A creek ran through the middle of the park, and large trees covered most of the picnic area. There was a bridge across the creek. Children were running and playing, people were playing volleyball, and a set of stairs led up to a ball diamond where others were playing softball. It was a beautiful setting, and everyone was having a good time. After we had eaten, the organizers announced that we were going to play a game. They had placed several long, heavy 4x4 wooden planks on supports. Next to each plank was a small table with a pile of nails and some hammers. The game was simple. People would line up and see who could drive their nails into the wood the fastest. Everyone began taking turns. People were laughing, pounding nails, and cheering each other on. One of the men at the picnic was a general contractor. He was in his late 60s and nearing retirement. He had worked as a contractor throughout his life. He had probably driven thousands and thousands of nails. He was wearing his overalls that day, and when his turn came, they placed him at the far end of one of the wooden planks. He picked up a nail, placed it against the wood, and swung the hammer. The nail bent over. He looked at it, picked up another nail, and tried again. That nail bent over too. By this time, a few people had started to notice. He picked up another nail. It bent. Then another. It bent too. People began gathering around. Some were quietly talking to each other. Others were pointing and trying to understand what was happening. Here was a man who had spent most of his life as a general contractor. He knew how to swing a hammer. He knew how to drive a nail. But every nail he tried to drive bent over. By the time he had bent 5 or 6 nails, he was becoming discouraged. He was also becoming embarrassed. He could not understand what was going wrong. Then another general contractor walked over. He watched for a moment and said, "Step down about 2 feet and try it there." The older contractor moved down the plank, picked up another nail, and placed it against the wood. He hit it once, then twice. The nail went straight in. He looked up and smiled. "That's more like it!" After the game was over, he went to the contractor who had told him to move and asked, "What was going on back there?" The other contractor smiled and said, "Come here." Together they turned the wooden plank over. Underneath the exact spot where all of those nails had bent was a steel plate about 1 inch thick. A section had been cut into the bottom of the wood, and the steel plate had been hidden inside. It had been placed there as a practical joke. The contractor had not lost his ability. He had not forgotten how to use a hammer. The nails were not defective. He had simply been hitting something he could not see. Everyone laughed. They patted each other on the back, and the picnic continued. But I never forgot what happened. That story has stayed with me throughout my life. The older I became, the more I realized that life is full of hidden steel plates. Most people don't wake up in the morning planning to make a serious mistake. They don't leave the house thinking, "Today I'm going to wreck my marriage." They don't plan on getting into an argument with their boss. They don't expect to lose a lifelong friendship over one careless conversation. They don't intend to make a business decision they'll regret for years. They don't plan to become addicted. They don't expect to be involved in a serious car accident. They don't imagine that one impulsive decision will alter the course of their future. In fact, most of us are trying to do the very best we can with the information we have at the time. But life has a way of placing obstacles beneath the surface. Sometimes it's pride. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's a bad habit that slowly grows into something much bigger. Sometimes it's believing something about ourselves that simply isn't true. Sometimes it's taking advice from the wrong person. Sometimes it's chasing success while neglecting the things that matter most. And sometimes it's a steel plate we never knew was there. When we keep hitting that hidden obstacle, it's easy to become discouraged. We begin to wonder if we've lost our ability. Maybe we're not smart enough. Maybe we're not talented enough. Maybe everyone else has figured something out that we haven't. But what if the problem isn't your ability? What if the problem isn't your effort? What if you're simply hitting something you cannot yet see? That simple experience at Oaklawn Park changed the way I began looking at life. It taught me to stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is the steel plate?" That question has followed me through every chapter of my life. As a young contractor, as a corporate executive, as a business owner, and now as an author and speaker. In fact, many of the principles that eventually became the V16 leadership platform began with simple experiences just like this one. Because leadership isn't just about telling people what to do, it's about learning to recognize the hidden obstacles that keep us from becoming the people we're capable of becoming. That's why I tell these stories, not because they're about nails, or hammers, or contractors, but because they're really about us. And every once in a while, one simple story helps us discover a steel plate we've been hitting for years. When that happens, everything changes.